So, bit of background on who you are and the team.
Hey, my name is Toby. I am the PR manager at Warhorse Studios, but...
Pause. Hi. Hello. I'm very sick. As you can probably hear, I have a throat infection. Yippee. I set aside time all last week to finish this. Unfortunately, it's the day before release. And in order to actually get this video out in time, I'm recording this in my sick state, strapped in trackers, EP. And hello, I've never actually done an interview before, and so I had to figure out what to do for that. So as you can tell, they were actually surprisingly impressed with some of the questions I asked. Now, me being both a VTuber and also never having done this before, how did I get this kind of reaction?
That's a very good question, actually.
I cheated. I cheated. I asked a distinguished, professional, peerless PhD historian, a real historian with a real degree. It's clear. Here she is, beating the shag priest. I had all the questions, fun, clear, ready to ask, fully prepped on my iPad. I didn't bring my iPad. I forgot the iPad. So I was panicking on the train. Fuck. Had to find out a way to actually get the questions during the interview so I don't look like a complete idiot. Turns out that your reminders app on your Apple Watch is actually able to do it. I would just check my watch like James Bond. Like, yes. Jan Zizka. Zizka. Yes. I had to go to the lovely headquarters of the devs of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And so, the team treated me very lovely. They helped me make chainmail. They provided food, gave a lovely and passionate, inspiring speech, and I proceeded to die multiple times in the very first fight in the hands-on demo. Embarrassing. And worse than Kotak. I saw lots of fun, and it turns out it was actually sensitivity. I blame the sensitivity. I beat the fight out to 100%, don't worry about it. Still sick, dying, cough. So, bit of background on who you are and the team.
Hey, my name is Toby. I am the PR manager at Warhorse Studios, but probably more like a mascot of the team. And I'm with Warhorse for over 10 years. In 25, after the release of KCD, it will be 11 years.
Wonderful, thank you. Alright, so this will be my first interview, so apologies for any little nervousness. And when I look at my watch, I'm not ignoring you, I have some notes there as well, so it'd be easier to read.
You will just stun me with your watch or something.
Well, James Bond,
yeah, absolutely.
So with the introduction of firearms, what sort of variety are you expecting in Kingdom Come 2? Because there's hand cannons that have been revealed. Are there any more potential contemporary gunpowder weaponry that's going to appear?
So the gunpowder weapons are definitely a new addition to the game, but don't expect KCT to become a shooter all of a sudden. So it's really, see it more as ultimate weapons kinda. So Henry can now have this belt equipped. I call it like a Batman belt where you can put different weapons on. So imagine there's, let's say, 3, 4, 5 people attacking you. You shoot the first with the gun, then pull out the crossbow, shoot the second, and then you pull out your sword and go into like melee combat. There's a slight variation in the gunpowder weapons. So there's some of them. It's not a shooter all of a sudden. Again, the focus is on generally that we have several weapons in the game, from swords, maces, pole arms, crossbows, and so on and so on. It's just a new power addition. I don't want to go too deep into it yet, but there's different bullets and different sprays and so on, and you can use it. But you need to know, while they are extremely strong, they are also extremely imprecise. So every weapon in the game, not only do they have this like stone, paper, scissors, good against different types of armor, they also have different strength and reliabilities and so on.
Right. Okay, cool.
So one of the main things, because my friend is a major history nerd, she's got a degree in after all,
She's particularly interested in if there's any recent historical discoveries or developments since the release of the first game that have impacted the development of the second.
Honestly, I don't think so. In the first game, we did everything we showed or did not show in the game was research to the best of our knowledge. We still have the same main historian who works in the game. She is the link to the outside world, to the universities, museums, reenactors, and so on. What we did different, though, compared to the first game, is that with more time, bigger resources, more budget, and so on, we were able to get a much more and much deeper knowledge and details about the specific parts and the research we are doing. So there's no major, like, oh my god, this is completely wrong, or we did this completely wrong and now change of mind or whatever. It's more that we could like be even more precise and could gather way more information than we did before. And again, we will display this in a codex in the game, so this is something like the condensed work of our historian.
Great. So expanding on that a little bit, what are the difficulties that come with crafting a story where there is all this established history like that?
It's very difficult, honestly, because usually you can come up with the story first and then craft the world around it according to your needs. That's like a fantasy thing. You need a city with 4 castles, well then just build a city with 4 castles. We have to kind of have it the other way around. So the world exists, the main historical events exist, and in this frame we have to put in your personal fictional story. It's just a different approach. It doesn't make it easier or harder. It's just, for instance, the city layout of Kuttenberg, which is the biggest single settlement in the game. It's that's a given. It looks exactly like that. There were the town's hall, there were the city walls, it had a castle, it had this and that. And looking at the foundation of that, knowing that, for instance, it had silver mines and those catacombs below the city, with that knowledge, we then have to come up with, okay, how do we fill that with interesting stuff? What do we do in those mines, for instance? We know that it was a hub for a merchant, so what do we do with the merchant? Maybe we can use the mines and for stealing, for instance, so we can like rob their houses blind from below and stuff like that. So it's just a different challenge, it's not a handicap, because that is something that I often get asked, if the realism and authentic part is a handicap. It's absolutely not. It's just another toolbox we have to use.
Oh, great, because you mentioned having to go on location into some of the cellars in Kuttenberg. Are there any locations like that to look out for, specifically extra detail?
All the locations of the game, including forests and stone formations and whatnot, are taken from real-life locations. So what we did is we bought satellite height maps and went to those places, did like almost photogrammetry stuff, take pictures, try to rebuild it and put it into the game and so on. Sometimes we cut away more boring parts and move the villages a little bit closer to each other so that the traversing time is is not as big as it would be in real life. So there's those technical compromises most of the time. But other than that, one of the biggest places on the first map is Trotsky Castle, which we can see right behind me. And Trotsky Castle is a ruin today. It's really not existing. The only thing that's left are the 2 towers there, but only the base of the towers. Everything else is really just a few walls and stone and so on. The interesting part now is that the castle was built in the year, I think, 1395. Don't nail me down on that date, but very close to the 1400s. The game takes place in 1403. What I'm trying to say is that in the time the game takes place, the castle was most likely in its full glory, just being finished and beautiful and whatnot. So we went to the people taking place of that area, to the museums and archives, talking about how it could have looked like, how the buildings around looked like, how the buildings most likely inside looked like, and so on. And we built it back into the look of 1403, which I think is a cool part. It's a cool side product of us developing this game. The intention is not living history. The intention is to like get a snapshot somewhat of that area. And the bonus part is that we are rebuilding forgotten stuff, and that's cool.
And on that, are there any, say, especially with the setting in 1403, were there any major events you either wanted to include that felt blocked because of the time you chose, or?
No, pretty much not. We knew that's a very good question actually, because only a few years later, there's a war breaking out in the whole of Europe, really in the center of Europe. It's called the Hussite Wars, a religious war. There were crusades and so on going on, so really big deal. And people were asking us like, why didn't you cover that? Well, first of all, because it's way too big for a video game, and second, we thought that the prelude of that war, the intrigues where people are still kind of in peace, but kind of not, and people are starting to feel that something is going on, and the wartime started, and so on. That is the setting we want to use. So it's not like there's no major event or no major thing that we wanted to have in the game and couldn't. It's more the features. So in KCD1, for instance, we wanted to have blacksmithing. Henry is the son of a blacksmith but couldn't blacksmith. So that's something we wanted to have in the first game but couldn't out of reasons. Now in the second game it absolutely can. We wanted to have crossbows because that's a very common weapon by that time. Couldn't, now we can. So it's more like, as I said, a question of features and like the mini details that are now being added.
Right, well, one thing in particular that my friend, and forgive me if I can't pronounce this correctly, but would there be potentially any cameos with Czech heroes throughout history, say Jan Žižka? Apologies if I butchered that one.
That is something you will see in KCD2 once it comes out, but I can already hint you that, first of all, I can hint you that most of the characters you will meet in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, most of them really, the vast majority, are characters you do not know from the first game. So they're all new, they all bring their new sets of stories and so on. And among those new characters, there's a lot of actual historical people. So, yeah.
And especially with the blacksmithing that is coming up, one of the questions would be around, are there any other extracurricular activities that Henry is able to do during his travels? Say, dance with bars in the taverns, fish in the rivers. Are there any extra mechanics like that in this one?
Mm-hmm. So generally we tried really hard to make I think in KCD1 it was already very active, the world I mean, so there's a lot of things going around, random events and so on. And we wanted to crank up the volume in KCD2 as well. So make it even denser, more interesting, new events and so on. However, you need to balance that with realism somewhat, because there's not a goblin cave after every corner, right, in real life. But then again, it's just a video game, so you need to have those interesting parts in there. Feature-wise, the single biggest thing that is being added, like minigame-wise, is the blacksmithing. And if you know how the alchemy looked like, with all like mixing the liquids together and boil it for the right amount of time and so on, then you get a very good idea how the blacksmithing will work. So you have to check the color of the iron, bash the right spots in the right rhythm. If you do so, Henry will start to whistle. That's the indicator that you do it right, and the quality goes up and down and so on and so on. So it will be really sophisticated again. And if you want to invest the time into that, then you can have advantages. There's a few improvements to what we offered in KCD1, of course, already. So the dice minigame, for instance, as an example, was even upgraded, so it goes a little bit deeper than it was before. But feature-wise, it's more a huge evolution of the first game rather than a revolution.
Right. Is that the kind of there? Okay, last question.
That's the combine the several questions.
Right. So Italians have been confirmed. So will there be any new specific heraldry outside of the region introduced, and options for that, along with other weaponry unique to the region or being brought in from external sources? So the game takes place in Bohemia, which was part of the Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Empire is, if you look at today's map, has parts of Italy, parts of France, parts of the Netherlands, Germany, and so on and so on. So this in itself already shows that in this empire there were several regions and several nationalities and several ideologies and whatnot, right? And thinking and so on. So, and if with the knowledge that Kutna Hora or Kuttenberg is the central bank of the Holy Roman Empire, that's where the silver is stashed and that's where it's mined and the coins are minted, then you know this will naturally attract a lot of people living the bohemian dream kind of, right? Want to open their businesses and so on. So yes, you will meet
different people from different places, introducing their heritage kinda, and I think that is pretty cool. And you saw that already in the trailer, and I can already hint already to you that Henry has together this gang of, let's call them misfits. Think of Ocean's 11 or Inglourious Basterds or something like that. Each of them are kind of weird, but together they're fighting what they perceive the good thing. Even that will be connected, will be put together with, for instance, a Polish dude, which we saw in the trailer already.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, well, that seems like the end of our time today. So thank you very much. This is my first interview. This is very fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, well done. Cool.
That didn't sound like it was your first interview at all. They were very considered.
Absolutely
questions.
pro.
I mean, like,
Thank
did
you.
Really well.
Thank
I'm
you.
actually shocked that that was your. I've sat in many a first interviews and none of them were.
Well, thank you very much. And I tried to make sure I asked a bunch of friends and stuff, so. Great. Pew, pew, pew. Thank you very much. All right, I'll pack up this stuff and get out of here.
So if you made it this far into the interview, I'd like to say thank you. We are raw dog in life right now. There I have got anti-inflammatories, antibacterials, honey, tea, hot water, ibuprofen, Panadol, sleep occasionally, but mostly not. There's no time for an editor. I'm just gonna be just slapping this together. Just I hope you liked it. Thank you very much for coming in. I will see you in the next one at some point. At some point, I will see you. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.